when I come on the podcast, I come correct, approachable. I'm demure. It means mindful. And that's how you can find me. Respectable. I will be honest, I don't know what I just said. And I have no idea what it means, but I know it's the opposite of brat. And I don't know what brat is either. And that's why we brought on John to help us understand. John, what the heck is demure, and am I demure?
No.
Okay.
So you have to be chronically online, right? And I think as we've spoken before, being chronically online isn't really reserved to an age group anymore. You could be about 75 and chronically online if you wanted to. But it's this trend now, mostly with the girls, and they go out and they throw their outfit on, like, look at me, I'm demure, I'm mindful, I'm cute, I'm understated, which is kind of really ironic because I don't really think anybody knows what demure actually means. It means modest and shy. So I don't think putting your outfits out on the internet is like the most modest and shy activity there is, but it's what's trendy right now, and it's what we're going to tie into.
So it sounds to me like demure is this kind of facade that one might put forward of elegance or grace. And I know that it's the opposite of, or it's come to prominence because of the other thing that's going on, which is the Brat Summer. And John, you're more online than me, believe it or not.
Right.
I don't know what that is. I think it's an album.
Okay. It is. Now, Brat Summer would tie into demure and mindful. Why? Because no one actually knows what demure actually means. That's how that's able to work. Cognitive dissonance, right? So we have Charlie XCX's album. Big deal. It's got the cool lime green with the black font on it. And it's become not just so much about the music, but a mindset, right? And this was happening in the spring where it was all about going out, indie sleaze, if you want another term, bringing back that Brooklyn hipster type way. Basically what it boiled down to was it was a packaged 15-track bundled excuse to go out and act however you want and not be responsible for the repercussions.
So getting rowdy and loud is being brat.
Yes, basically. And I think it ties into a lot of other 7 deadly sins too. And the thing was, this was a big movement. Everyone's saying, I'm going to have a Brat Summer. I'm going to have a Brat Summer. And then, of course, once Joe Biden got cast to the side, what do they got to do? They got to take the trend of the moment. And Charlie goes out and tweets that Kamala's brat, and this is why we can't have nice things. You know, let me tell you something. As a guy that doesn't lean far left and loves music and art and fashion, what I go through consistently with seeing things like that is akin to what I feel like people when they have like a sea turtle that they rescued, you know, and like they let it back into the ocean, and then like 20 yards out, like a seal comes and just murks it. Like, you know, every fashion and music and art moment that you grow to love just gets co-opted in this world that we're in.
Yeah, I didn't realize that she had twisted it into a stump for Kamala Harris. Did you see that, Mike?
I did, yeah. Charlie, she gave the nod and she said, you know, Kamala is brat. So, you know, it's funny, the celebrities that chase the Democratic Party, right? That's their biggest angle, and that's how they build up their enthusiasm. So there's no shortages of celebrities, especially what we saw at the DNC, the performances that went on that night.
Well, I would say if you're a presidential candidate and you want to act stately and you want to run for office, you would rather not be brat. You'd want to be demure. You'd want to be elegant. You'd want to be poised. You'd want to be polished, as opposed to the ripped jean jacket. Is that rocker? I don't know.
I love my jean jacket. Want to know what's really funny? If you look at the definition of what people say Brat Summer is, doing what you want, saying what you want, being unapologetic, going for what you want, and just, God spare me the consequences. Well, that certainly sounds like a political candidate, but not the one they're associating it with.
So Trump is the
That's
OG
the irony
brat.
of it. Yeah, he actually is.
The real irony is if you're demure, you shouldn't have to go around saying that you're understated, right? I guess that would be the irony of all.
I always find it awfully funny. I'm going, you know, Instagram stories, and it's 5 girls rolling out of an Uber at 2 a.m. to go into the bar, like, oh, we're demure, we're mindful, and like, yeah, I'm like 5'6" too. Like, it's just like, I don't think you guys really know what's going on here, but that's all part of the amusing aspect of it. And that's something I want to get to, is that the facts, the definitions of words, all these things, they don't matter anymore. The vibe does.
Right.
The movement does. Everything else it's not even secondary, it's tertiary. It's off to the side. It doesn't matter.
That's exactly what Mike and I talked about last week in our episode. And it's very interesting to me that as I'm learning the definitions of these words, it sounds like a state of mind, actionable way of moving or acting. I'm curious, though, if just as simple as dressing the part or whatnot is a way to become demure or become brat. I saw in the news this week a study. It was done by McKinsey, one of the leading consulting firms, and they showed that there was a 15% increase in luxury goods sales, even despite the economic downturns and all of the downward consumer behavior that we've been seeing. So would it be brat or demure to walk around with your Louis Vuitton or your Chanel? I guess it's up for interpretation. I mean, I'm so lost.
Yeah, it's very brat, but certainly on the context, you can dress it down and make it demure. That's the irony of it all, right?
Again, like I've been saying, though, those things tie together because the definitions don't matter. It's all about the look. You ask anybody in that realm, those things are tied together. It makes no sense. But then you take a step back. On a micro level, it makes no sense. On a macro level, culturally, somehow it does.
I hope we're rounding the curve. I feel like we're on the 20 minutes of the 15 minutes of fame on this particular phrase.
Well, Mike, the Hawk Tuah girl is still on a meteoric rise, so they've extended those 15 minutes.
Do you know she threw out the ceremonial first pitch at a Mets game? That was a
really?
day game. That was a day game that was billed as Kids' Day at the ballpark.
That's too funny.
I actually went to the Mets game the following day after her.
No, but like, what are we doing though, man? Like,
yeah,
I'm very curious because I haven't been able to find out. I've not seen any footage. I don't know anyone that was there. Did they introduce her as like Hawk Tuah?
That's a great question. We have to get to the bottom of. God bless her for, what was she? She was a factory worker in a small town of a couple hundred people. It's just as you look back, what do you want your legacy to be necessarily, right? I don't know. The money's good and you're making a career out of it. Good for you getting in a small town.
I'm not knocking her.
That's my point, right? That's the double-edged sword here, right? Is it's unfortunate that it's the Hawk Tuah fame that brought her out of her small town,
Like, even like the New York Mets, though, having her out, I mean, that's like what are we doing? Even like they wanted to have. Do we know who the Costco family is?
Yes.
Oh, yes, of course. Of course.
Big AJ, Big Justice, Ashley.
Yeah, I think that kid actually plays baseball.
The Rizzler, yeah.
Thank you, Mike. The Rizzler. I mean, listen, the heavy-set kid can probably throw the ball. He's always playing baseball on TikTok, and he's not talking about what Hawk Tuah girl. Do you know how awkward that is? Like when you're with family, and I've had family ask me, like what is Hawk Tuah? Like,
yes,
we're not doing this today. We're not doing it. I don't know what it is. I've never experienced it in my life, and I'm not talking about it.
She explains it pretty well in her original video. I think they just need to refer to that.
That's right. When you take these things out of context, it really loses its meaning. You just have to listen to the second state. Like, there were fine people on both sides. You just listen to the context, it means something totally different. So anyway, what I think is this consumerist mentality has led to the spawning of these terms, because to me, I guess, listen, I'm learning. I hear you guys say it doesn't matter what it means. It's just how you act or how you present yourself or how you maybe even feel. But I'm into brands. I wear flashy tie-dye T-shirts and these hats that have a name brand on it all the time. And I there used to be this term camp a couple of years ago where you would kind of describe things that were a little bit out of the mainstream or not normal. And I felt like that it was a similar thing where it was kind of this cultural phenomenon. Everyone wanted to scab onto this and be a part of it, and only very certain people even understood what it meant. So, Mike, I too want to move on from Brat and Demure, and let's go on to the next topic, which is tied into this same consumerism point. And it was the Demure candidate, Harris. She came out and she said that she wants to give $25,000 to any first-time homebuyers. Now, the knee-jerk reaction from the right is to totally trash this policy and go ahead and say, well, that just means houses are going to go up by $25,000. I don't know if I believe that.
This is certainly the challenge that I have, right? Because John will definitely shed some light on the commercial market and what that might have an effect on, similar if you were to recreate that model there. But I do have that kind of similar concern. Here I am, Democrat agreeing with Republicans, at least because I saw it firsthand in Miami. So when we were looking for property, my wife and I, what happened was there was no contingency requirements by sellers, which means that banks were trying to cap this meteoric rise in the value of properties by saying, that property's not worth $300,000. It's worth $250,000, and we're not giving loans for anything more than that. A seller could just simply say, well, I don't care. I'm still selling it for $300,000. If that's the only loan you get, you got to come up with the other $50,000 in hand, right? So it's the government regulations want to do and what the unintended consequences will be, are really the challenges here. I am all for supporting first-time home buyers, having gone through it myself. It is going to be the most important indicator of whether you will do better off than the previous generation or you will do worse, is whether you can acquire some, real estate soon enough in your life. So I want to help them out, but I'm also cynical and, believing that a market will just say, okay, free 25 grand, we could just, pluck from each house evaluation, right? Because it's coming to them for free, essentially.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, but it sounds to me like it was the seller, the market, and then the bank that was putting these constraints against it. Right? But maybe the seller wouldn't even know where you're getting your funding or where you're sourcing this money. So is it, it sounds like you're backing the stance of the Republicans, whereas I'm kind of saying, I don't know if I agree with that. I would think that this is actually a beneficial handout to those people that are in need. And now you could talk about the implications of raised taxes and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think that this is going to impact the housing market the same way that other people are saying.
This is still a lofty campaign promise. The devil will be in the details. I think it'll be really important on how it's implemented, if there's any kind of strings attached to that, to prevent kind of abuse by sellers in, trying to gobble up that, money that's really supposed to help them put their down payment in and get into the home, and not just simply make it, more of a stretch for their, the ability to get into it by rising the evaluation kind of out of their reach. So like I said, it's a lofty campaign promise right now. Certainly Republicans will latch onto anything because the Harris-Walz campaign is very scant on details and high on lofty dreams right now.
Yeah, well, John, I was reading an article this morning that actually kind of backs up what the Republicans and Mike, what you're tending to agree with here. This is the Federal Reserve's 2024 economic report, and it says that housing prices have increased 7% year over year, which is driven in part by government incentives, but also the low inventory. So obviously the federal government themselves have indicated that the incentives that they're handing out are raising the prices of these homes. So John, like I said, being in that world as a realtor yourself, what are you seeing? Are you selling? I know you're commercial, but are you selling things? Are you signing contracts, or there's just no one out there?
So it's slower than it has been. Absolutely. You have to grind a lot harder. Deals are much tougher to come by, but they are getting done. You have to understand the commercial world is a lot different. We're not getting these type of grants, and I could only imagine what commercial real estate people would be doing with this type of subsidy from the government. I think they get really creative, and you give some of these characters that ability, it would be very funny. You have to understand the commercial world, the LTVs are higher, right? 25, 75 LTV on a minimum. Okay.
Can you define what LTV is?
Break that down.
Loan to value. Loan to value.
Okay.
Got it.
Very simple. So one thing I wanted to say about that, no, I don't do residential, but I can tell you is it kind of reeks of a couple things here. One, this promise sounds just like Joe Biden. I'm going to forgive all the student debt. Well, go ask someone out there find somebody, they're not hard to find, with hundreds of thousands of dollars of student debt. Ask them if they got it forgiven. They didn't. It's almost like your coworker's abusive boyfriend. Like, oh, he said next time's going to be different. Like, sorry, I really don't know what to tell you. Like, I mean, you haven't learned by now. You're cute. You can get somebody else. But the thing is, too,
Biden syndrome.
But the thing is, too, and I'll say about this, I'm just afraid that, and I'm all for people getting home ownership, things like that. It can empower, like we saw 15 years ago, 16 years ago, empower a subprime buyer. Right?
Oh.
You remember The Big Short? One of my favorite scenes in The Big Short, you have Steve Carell, he's at the strip club, he's getting a lap dance, and he's talking to the stripper, and she's like, yeah, I have 3 investment properties. And he says to her, listen, you don't have to dance, keep your clothes on, I'll pay you as if you did. But how did you do that? And he finds out she's putting 0 down here, 0 down there, rolling the income, and then it all comes tumbling down. Because at the end of the day, for a nation that's trillions of dollars in debt, where's the 25 grand each coming from? You know, and if this person needs the extra 25 grand, are they a prime candidate for a loan, period, in an exceptionally strict lending environment? Like, it just doesn't connect. If we want to keep using lingo, like, the math doesn't math.
Yeah.
Understandable,
it is, I mean, I guess the rule right now is you can withdraw from your 401k, which some are fortunate to have at the time that they're buying something, but many are not. But you're right, John. Presumably they would loan this money from another country, or take it out of social security benefits, or take it out of who knows where. Honestly, just print more money and create a higher inflationary spiral. So, yeah,
you just have to make sure it doesn't lend itself to predatory lending practices, basically. Just because it's government subsidized, just because it's rubber stamped to Washington, doesn't mean it's not the best avenue. Doesn't mean it's not a predatory lending scheme. It just has to, I think you really should only go for that and give it to people that could have done it anyway, because it still lessens the burden on them. It still lessens the burden, but it doesn't put them in peril. Whereas it would if that's like, if someone's net worth goes up exponentially by getting 25 grand, should they really be going and buying property, or should they be patching that up otherwise before they go signing the dotted line? And it's better for the seller too.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, just as you said, like The Big Short, right? It's starting to make me think, right? If you set up all these people who couldn't get that mortgage otherwise, right, in a very financially precarious situation, we might be building kind of a house of cards on that if we're not careful enough.
Absolutely, Mikey. For real.
Yeah, and also, just beyond that, simply, I think that this policy even floated as an idea, or the fact that this is something that may appeal to, let's call it, people our age in their mid-30s. I think that it shows that millennials have no savings, no ability to put a down payment down, but they actually have relatively high earnings and therefore could probably afford the payments on such a house. Mike, different story than you, but when I purchased our home a few years ago, we had enough money saved up to purchase the home. We were very fortunate, but then we could also afford the payment that came along with kind of what we could afford. If we couldn't afford that and we needed a subsidy to then afford the bigger house, then presumably we couldn't afford the payment on that either. And not to mention, that was when the rates were in the 2s. Now they're in the 6s. So
right.
Really scary prospect, and things definitely could come tumbling down. A lot of our viewers might be younger. They don't recognize people lost their jobs, their homes, their livelihood, their retirement accounts. Things were not good back in 2008 all the way up to 2012. So definitely something that maybe, as John indicated, doesn't need to come into fruition, and it's just the lofty promises. But that brings me to the 2024 Pew Research Center survey, which was recently released, and it found an alarming statistic. 62% of voters now base their choices on candidates' brand image and media presence rather than their policy positions. This is up from just 45% in 2010. So this obviously has to do with social media, with influencers, as we've been saying, joining the campaign, joining the Democratic Party, frankly, and writing up op-ed pieces like George Clooney does. All of this is kind of playing into that vibe messaging. And what's so strange is now, not only that you have to be this figure, you have to be this popularity contest winner, but you also have to kind of, if I were Kamala or Trump, hammer down that personal brand. And it's something that's so prevalent in social media today, when you almost, how do I say this? So I'm a right-wing pundit on X, right? And so when someone comes to my page, they have these preconceived notions of what I think or what I say. And in some cases that's good. In some cases, in many cases, it's not. But my point being, to work on your personal brand as a presidential candidate is a very strange thing, because again, it's creating these assumptions of the person's beliefs or policies, but there's no belief or policy being spoken about. It's just the brand, which is, it's not encompassing of the values. It is just the person and the image.
But that doesn't matter.
Right. So like you're saying with Demure or Brat, it doesn't matter which one you call Kamala, because she can embody both, whichever the perception is of the demographic.
Can I go off here?
Please do.
Riff, please. Right. Cook. I want you to cook, sir.
We can do that. We can do that well. Before 2016, elections, and for the history of time, were decided upon policy, culture. 2016, 2020, let's say 2016 was emotions, raw emotion. 2020 lended itself more to chaos. 2024 is the first election ever to be decided by consumerism. Okay, because we are a nation now of hyper consumers. We've spoken before about attention spans lowering, bed rotting, the For You page. Well, now we got the TikTok shop. You're sitting there, you're on your bed. Okay, I like that. Okay, 2 minutes, like 2 second attention span. I want that. I'm going to buy it.
Right.
And everything now, to use some more terminology here, everything's coded. Everything's coded. There's nothing you can wear, drink, eat, fly a flag, bumper sticker on your car, everything. Oh, that's left-wing coded. That's right-wing coded. So that's why when you see people talk about Kamala and they say, oh, well, what does she believe? This, and that. I don't care. I just want to be part of the movement. It's cool. It's Brat. It's whatever it is. I mean, even after the Civil War, Even after the Civil War, people from the North and South were able to bond and be friends. And now we have become so divided, and that our main methodology in the 2020s is that we're consumers. That's what we identify as. We don't go out anymore. We don't go anywhere. Everyone's at home. Everyone's buying, right? And what this does is people express themselves through their wallets. That's why even though all the economic indicators are down, consumer spending's up. And you can look at what people buy and you know how they're going to vote, right? In the commercial real estate world, there's property owners, guys that own investment properties. Are they all voting the same way? No. But are a lot of them voting for the guy that also has a lot of commercial real estate holdings? Yeah. Is that really a shock? But then people go, oh, Kamala's got no shot. Really? Because how many guys out there and girls out there that have investment properties are going out there and voting? Yeah, there's a bunch. But then how many people out there, with Stanley Cups and Summer Friday's lip balm are going out and voting? Well, there's a lot more of them. It's like a 35-to-1 ratio. And they don't care about the policy. They don't care, this, and that. I'm going to put my pros and cons. No, I want to ride the vibe. I want to ride the wave. This is what I buy. This is where I spend my money. This is how I dress. And this is what I stand for. I really, really don't care about the issues in the policy. This is how I want you to see me because I'm going for this person with their personal brand because look at my personal brand. And it's all about me. And that's where we are. And that's why consumerism rules the roost. Politics, socially, with your family, no matter what it is. We're a nation of spenders, and it's permeating every single aspect of our waking lives.
To contrast with the Hillary Clinton and the Trump campaign, right? Just to what you were saying before, Hillary Clinton put out a 120-page or 110-page policy paper of what her administration would do and what it's going to look like, and that was their marketing point, right? Or selling point, that was their marketing angle to the American people. Vote for me for this reason, and similarly, the Trump campaign did then. Now you're seeing a complete opposite of that, right? So now Trump had gone out, and the Vance campaign, the Trump-Vance campaign this year, have pushed out a policy page. Again, I don't know how long it is, but it's a pretty good sized PDF explaining their policies, and they're being excoriated for each and every one of them, and even Project 2025, which is not explicitly theirs, right? So that is actually a liability is policy right now, and it's interesting to watch Kamala because she's dancing on the head of a pin here between using Biden's administration accomplishments to her advantage, and then somehow also carefully distancing herself away. And as I said it was G0 media I saw, and it really encapsulated the phrase perfectly, is just she's trying to turn vibes into victory. This is not a policy race anymore. In fact, the more you say of explicitly what you're going to do, like I said, is a liability to you.
Yeah, because people are sitting there going, oh, whoa, we're not actually doing politics here. We're not doing politics, okay? One side's like, I want to throw on my denim jacket. I want to go out. I want to drink. It's Brat Summer. I don't care. And the other side's like, oh, he called her communist Kamala. I'm going to buy the MAGA hat, buy the Black Rifle coffee, whatever. I buy this and I hang out here. Cool. I buy this and I hang out here. This is my girl. This is my guy. What's your policy? What's your policy? Who cares? Who cares about the boring stuff?
Well, hey, ever since we've gotten these stimulus checks a few years ago and we continue to see this inflation rise and spiral. I always said about those stimulus checks, you cash the check and you literally went to the store to go shopping with that money. That's what everyone did. I don't think a single person spent that money on groceries, but now we have all of this same kind of consumerism, the same handouts for housing. I mean, what else are we going to give handouts for next? It's crazy. In fact, it sounds like next we're going to give everybody a Bitcoin because the Democrats are now softening on Bitcoin, right? Mike, could you speak a little bit to this? Because you were texting me about this earlier today.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. The crypto pack, and I forget the name. I believe it's Fair Shake, but I believe that's what it is, but don't quote me. But I believe it's called Fair Shake. They've spent, $192 million in lobbying, and yeah, that's a massive number in total. But 90% of all lobbying that this group has done to date has occurred in the first half of this year, or what we have from the FEC filings. So just in the first half, they've been very cleverly not doing explicit pro-crypto messaging, but what they simply do is they just primary out candidates who are not favorable towards crypto. So that's actually a basis for why you saw a few of the progressives lose their primaries here, a la Jamal Bowman and Cory Bush. So they, not entirely, but certainly with significant help from, I believe, like I said, it's Fair Shake PAC, putting a lot of money behind a more moderate and established candidate who did have more, lenient feelings towards a crypto environment.
I would say, and John, maybe you can echo this as someone who is more picking up on vibes regularly to than me. Honestly, I have a little bit of a more analytical side to me. But would you say that the crypto sphere has a political home or not? Is it, if you're on the right wing, you probably feel a certain way about the economy, the border, and abortion. And if you're on the left wing, you can assume those people's stances as well, as we talked about. So if you're big into crypto, is it easy to assume the political affiliation in your mind?
I would say, well, first of all, did you just tell me I wasn't analytical?
I think you're a little bit more. You're a little more vibey. Hey, that's a good way. I lack that.
I'm just messing with you.
You pick up on it.
If you are in the quote unquote trenches of crypto, if you are in telegrams, if you are in discords, if you're in group chats on Twitter, X, whatever, you will find a certain connotation, a certain way that goes. Now, and this is why I get a little aggravated when people actually say, oh, crypto is a right-wing thing, because crypto is anonymous and faceless. Okay, you go in, you sign up for a wallet, and no one knows your age, race, creed, color, or gender. It's free, man. You could be purple hair, Subaru, Vermont, I love Bernie. You could be gun-toting, literally a cowboy. Doesn't matter. And not only that, the people you're trading with and communicating with aren't going to know this either. But that doesn't change the fact that, yes, there's absolutely a slant to it. And I would say it's by far a more right-leaning thing. And maybe not even right-leaning, because the eminence of crypto is far more libertarian. Mike, you and I were involved in it a long time ago. We were early adopters. I'll say that. Sounds cringe. I really don't care. It's the fact of the matter.
Sure.
I won't say what we were doing, where we were buying stuff, but we were doing things.
I cannot recall, and I
don't send the black vans. But the fact of the matter is, I'd say the overriding thing in crypto is a complete distaste for political correctness, a complete distaste for the establishment financial system. You know, you can't go into crypto and look at it the way you would your 401k and your mutual funds. There's got to be an aspect of gunslinger to you, risk taker. Those are the kind of people it takes. And those kind of people tend to gravitate more towards outlying realms of this political spectrum. You're not going to find a centrist normie in crypto. You know, I mean, there could be some that I dollar cost average into Ethereum and Bitcoin. I make the smart play. But if you're buying like Doge and whatever Rocket and Joe Biden coin, yeah, we kind of know what's going on there. And that's just the fact in the matter. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what the reality of the situation is by somebody that is in these communities and doing this every single day for a long time now.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not right or wrong. It's not right or left. I'm a big supporter in it. And actually last week I gave the Democrats a little bit of a hat tip because in their official party platform, they didn't mention cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. But I bring it up because I have something to add to it. Actually, it was just released by CoinDesk, and they put out an analysis. They said that the 2023 infrastructure bill, it included a crypto tax provision, and this was due to lobbying. So they wanted to increase the regulation and increase the taxes that they were going to be pulling out. And it resulted in a 12% market drop immediately after announcement. So the market reacted swift and starkly, and it created a hole in a lot of people's pockets when that happened. But now, by just simply not mentioning it, it's presumably that there won't be any talk about it or any movement on it. But I think we all know in practicality that that's just not going to happen. You've got the contingency of Elizabeth Warren, and then the difference would be to starkly contrast that with Chuck Schumer, who has an opposite opinion on cryptocurrency. So I think, John, you're on the right track there to think that it doesn't have a political home and more of an extremist side. I like what you said there. It's a gunslinger sport.
That's perfectly it. It attracts a certain personality type, and I don't think it should surprise you that I'm right in there. But yeah.
So, guys, thanks for coming on and talking about it today. I think that when we all go back in time and buy our first houses with $25,000 extra in our pocket, maybe we should go in together and we can buy one of those $3 million mansions that the TikTok kids are using to film all their content in. I know John would love that.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Do I get a walk-in closet that I'm in?
Of course. And we'll have 2 swimming pools and 4 Lamborghinis and an Aston Martin. So, guys, thanks for joining me today. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Happy to be back.
Yes, we're happy to have you, John, and our resident vibes king. This has been Elevated Thoughts.